Hi, how are you doing? My name is Lee Gerstmann, and I have a record review for you. This album was suggested to me by Andrew Jacobs. I have to say, hey, how you doing, buddy? Thank you. The album that he suggested was by Lou Reed, called Metal Machine Music. I forget exactly what year that I first heard of that album, but I had heard about it for a long time, since I was at least maybe 25. So I've heard of it for a long time. And I saw a copy of it one time at the used record shop. And then so what I did was I sampled it on the headphones because they had vinyl turntables and vinyl albums, and I could only listen to like about one split second, and I was like, ouch. It was so loud. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I couldn't really get into any of it. I heard literally like beep, and that's it. And so I decided then, well, if I was going to listen to this album, which I've heard parts of it here and there, I would have to do it on a lower volume. So when I reviewed it by listening to the whole thing on not totally loud volume. And what I found, believe it or not, was, well, first of all, if you know the Velvet Underground's song European Sun, and you know that really weird kind of feedback and violin and whole jamming sound on that, and even in some parts the song Heroin with that screechy violin, you know that Lou Reed in some ways did noisy stuff. So this album was maybe his way of being able to do noisy stuff that was in the extreme. And I thought that some of it sounded kind of like space music, sort of like an extreme version of Penderecki and Varese, Christoph Penderecki and Edgar Varese. And I found that the first part was sort of the beginning, like the structure of all of the different elements that was going to be a part of the whole thing. And there was various different techniques and layers of fast and slow and weird sounds going through it that I thought was interesting, even though it was very repetitive and it's not something that you would listen to all the time. And then the second part sounded maybe a little bit slightly as if it was influenced by Tangerine Dream's album Zeit, because that has a lot of just even flow of monotony on it. The second part didn't necessarily have too much variation in it. And then the third part seemed to be kind of a combination of the first part and the second part. It had some variation in it, and it also had some monotony. And then the fourth part, to me, sounded a little bit more varied, almost like it was starting to burst into wanting to be a song, even though it wasn't a song. And then it ended on that loop, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I would say if you're a fan of Lou Reed and you're able to get into electronic rock and ambient stuff, you might not want to hear this all the time. In fact, you might only want to hear this once, if you're even able to hear the whole thing once. But I will say that for the kind of album it is, I would say, well, hey, I grew up listening to the Plastic Ono Band their album Live Peace in Toronto, and Yoko Ono doing the song John, John, Let's Hope for Peace, which was a really kind of weird electronic feedback noise piece with her screaming. So if I can hear that, I can definitely hear this. And if I can hear a piece by Morton Feldman called For Philip Guston, which lasts about 4.5 hours, and I did not fall asleep during it, and I was able to listen to and enjoy the whole thing, then Metal Machine music really is not that big of a deal. But yeah, if you're a fan of Bon Jovi or Jim Croce or stuff like that, don't even try, because this is not going to be anything that you can handle. But if you like, let's say, hot pepper in your food, so to speak, music-wise, this is a pretty okay album to hear at least once, or at most once. But hey, I want to say thank you, Andrew Jacobs, for suggesting it, because I might not have taken the chance and heard the whole thing if it was not for your suggestion. But yeah, I didn't mind it at all. Okay, well, that's been my review. Cheers, everyone.